to it. This week, gentlemen, the name on the marquee has got to be Khalil Roundtree Jr., who this past weekend in the co-main event of UFC Fight Night defeated Anthony Lionheart Smith by TKO in round number 3, the official time, 56 seconds of the third round mark. Start us off here. Give us your take of Khalil showing out in the biggest spot of his career.
He sure did. Khalil strikes the way that characters strike in movies. Like, you're not supposed to be able to seemingly load up and generate as much power from all spots with as much balance as Khalil Roundtree does. Like, there's no bracing, there's no planting. I mean, obviously at times there is, but like plenty of times there's not. And the power is still like death power. He is so controlled with his shots and the power behind them at all times. I mean, he's really special to watch strike, and he's frightening to watch strike, which we've said before. And I think he has now become the guy that we all always thought he could be. Like, not to say he can't be beat by an elite wrestler or even some other great striker, because he could be. But his overall game, mental and physical, has reached the point now where he is a true threat for anyone in this division. And even in the KO here, I must have rewound this thing like 20 consecutive times. He generates power that it doesn't look like he should be able to generate from the way that he threw those two shots. But he has it, man. He just has that natural nuclear bomb power. And now he seems to have found the full game technique wise and the understanding of it to go with it. And he has become a complete threat. And as for Anthony Smith, I mean, he more or less came out here and he tried to strike with Khalil, which was never going to go well. He was the bigger man in the fight. I thought we'd see way more crashing inside and trying to clinch and pushing Khalil to the fence and leaning on him and trying to sap his energy. You know, maybe you get him off balance and you take him down from there. But we didn't really see any of that. And, you know, to be fair, a couple times he did try to clinch and Khalil spun him right around. So maybe he just felt like, wow, I'm not the stronger man here and this is not going to work. So he just felt sort of lost, maybe, Anthony Smith. I don't know. But either way, it was a masterclass from Khalil Roundtree, and it was awesome to see. And that the finishing shot of him just hovering over Anthony Smith with his fist in the air in case he needed it was a hell of a shot.
Yeah, man. Omar, let's bring you in here now. Khalil Roundtree, his forte is Muay Thai. Muay Thai is also an area of passion for you, to say the least. What were your thoughts, given your perspective as one who trains in the art of 8 limbs, of Khalil's big win here?
I love watching Khalil Roundtree fight, man. His Muay Thai has, over the years, become so incredible to watch, so devastating to watch. And his creativity in the cage, I think, creativity in Muay Thai, I think, is what really separates a lot of these guys at the top level. Because Muay Thai, you know, there's a lot of fundamentals that you carry that everybody carries throughout. Some guys stick to the fundamentals and make it their own. Other guys use the fundamentals to break rules and do kind of their own thing. You could say Chase, actually, Mike, is one of those guys, right? He's doing a lot of spinning, a lot of moving, a lot of dancing. You wouldn't necessarily look at him and look at other guys traditionally who fight Muay Thai and say that they do the same thing. Chase has definitely made his thing his own, and Khalil has kind of done the same thing. You know, Mark, when you're talking about the power of Khalil, for me, that's a Muay Thai game. Like, one of the things that we get taught a lot is consistency. You don't have to throw 100% of your power, but if you're going to throw 40% of your power, you're going to throw 40% of your power the entire time you're in that fight. You don't lose power in that fight. You don't go down. If you want to go up, you can go up, but you can't go down. So you have to pick a pace and stick to that pace. And I think unless somebody is able to get Khalil off of his rhythm and off of his pace, I think we're going to see a lot more of that consistent power going forward. As far as the clinch game is concerned, the clinch game was beautiful from Khalil. And I think Anthony Smith did try to do something in there with him. And he lost his head position. I think the fact that Khalil was the shorter fighter, in there, was working to his advantage, because he was able to put his head below Anthony Smith's chin and completely control those situations. Not to mention that Khalil is a fucking animal of a person, like a true specimen physically. And he's also, Muay Thai is very much a clinch game as well. Like if he's adept in the clinch, the standing clinch, I mean, what happened in there was not a surprise to me in the least. Anthony Smith, I thought, should have gone for way more takedowns than he did. The clinch game was also, I think, not going to work for him the same way the stand-up wasn't going to work for him. And I thought Roundtree put on such a performance, such a mix-up of body strikes, head strikes. We see a lot of guys head hunting a lot, and Khalil was able to not get stuck in that, especially with Anthony Smith hurt. It was a perfect performance as far as I was concerned. I was super happy to see all that Khalil come out that night.
Yeah, I've always liked Anthony Lionheart Smith, but I've also always loved Khalil Roundtree since he kind of came onto the scene as a middleweight and now light heavyweight in the UFC. Just knowing his story, I feel for Anthony Smith, man, a guy who challenged for the title, but at one point in the middle of this fight, I was like, Anthony Smith is still trying to stand and trade with Khalil Roundtree. I don't know if this is the game plan. It seems like it kind of is. I don't know if this is the best game plan. Of course, I'm not a trained mixed martial artist. And of course, Anthony Smith has got to believe in his skill set to the max, to the fullest. So I'm sure he's got to go in there with the mindset of like, this guy, everybody thinks that he's this powerful Muay Thai striker. Well, guess what? I'm gonna change some minds here tonight. And he bet on himself, and as well he should, but it did not pay off this time.
I don't disagree with that take at all. I will say though, like there has to be, I think for every fighter, there has to be a point where you go, all right, well, maybe I was wrong. And I feel like the end of that first round when Anthony Smith's face got broken open, I feel like that might have been the point where he's like, maybe I should do something else. This might be the time to switch up the game plan a little bit. But he doubled down and then tripled down in the third round.
Even if he felt like, oh, I got clipped there, I just, I fucked up, wrong read, whatever. By mid-round 2, it's like you don't want to tell a guy he has to be desperate because obviously there's got to be better game plans than that. But still, at a certain point in a fight, when you're outgunned, it's like, okay, I do have to get a little desperate to close this distance or nothing is going to change. And I just feel like that never clicked for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, let's talk about what is next for these two light heavyweights. Let's start with the winner here, Khalil Roundtree Jr., once again, coming off of now the biggest win of his career in terms of name, popularity in Anthony Smith. Mark, give us the name, if you were the matchmaker of the UFC, who you would be matching up Khalil with next.
So I'll give you two routes. I'm wondering if he is the man who's going to get asked to step in at UFC 297 against Alexander Rakic. Rakic was supposed to fight Blachowicz. Blachowicz has pulled out. Rakic called out Yuri. Yuri said he was down, but he needed another month or two. And the UFC still has not pulled Rakic off of this card. So I don't know if they're going to go the Rakic-Yuri route and say, okay, we'll bump it to February or March, or if they just really want him on that card. And if they do, Khalil Roundtree may not be a bad choice because he seemingly did not take much damage. And that's a really big opportunity for him. And I'm sure he'd jump at that. If they're going to go Rakic-Yuri, then I will say Nikita Krylov. I feel like I've been talking about him a bit recently, saying how he's sitting there without an opponent. It has been a very long time. I don't really get why there is no fight being mentioned for him, but if there's still not, him and Khalil certainly would be a fun one as well.
What about you, Omar? Any other ideas?
Yeah, I wonder what the weight cut is for Khalil because, not to say, I mean, it would be a kind of a quick turnaround for him to get to fight Rakic.
Rakic, yeah.
I think it's Rakic.
Rakic. It'd be a quick turnaround for him if we're talking about him having to go through a whole other weight cut.
Like 40 days basically between fights.
Yeah, and I'm assuming he looked like a big boy in there last week. So it's definitely possible that it might be too close for him. Maybe it's something that he has under control. Maybe he doesn't balloon up as much as it looks like he does in the first place, but he looks like he walks around like big. So, My pick was the loser of the Ankalaev and Johnny Walker fight coming up in the near future. It just seemed like that would be a nice little progression for Khalil to keep knocking him down.
Yeah, man. All right. Now let's shift our focus to where Anthony Smith could be going from here. Omar, go first on this one. Okay, Mark. Something's happening.
Yeah, that's Mark. Are you touching your microphone or something? Because your shit is out of control.
What was happening?
It was like when you were like moving stuff.
I wasn't doing anything.
Don't touch your computer.
Don't touch the computer.
Just don't do it.
Hands up. Hands
not,
up for the rest of the time.
That's not good.
Okay, Omar, give us a name for where Anthony Smith could go next at 205.
Okay, so for Anthony Smith, I had him against the winner of Dominic Reyes and Carlos Olberg. That is assuming that Dominic Reyes survives that fight and subsequently doesn't retire. So
have him and Reyes fought?
They have not.
Nope.
I will say this in terms of that choice there. I would love him against Reyes. I think that would be a nice matchup.
I agree.
Not so much against Olberg, because Olberg looks like a fucking world beater at 205, and I don't want Anthony Smith to keep racking up these L's, man.
Well, according to Anthony Smith, he's the best light heavyweight in the world. So when that happens, you got to put him up against the best light heavyweights in the world.
Dude, I liked his take on John Jones, and he's a good analyst.
Oh, he's a really good analyst.
And his take on John Jones is like not wrong, I feel. What do you think?
What take?
No,
his take
that he can keep the belt.
No. Well, that is also true, and like respect. After he fought John, he was like, John is not great at any one thing, but he is the best at putting it all together. Like he's like his stand-up by itself is not like he doesn't knock a lot of guys out. Yeah. He doesn't have the best power. There are better wrestlers than him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I don't buy that, to be honest.
You don't?
No, I don't. I think his wrestling is actually pretty elite. I think his ground game, his jiu-jitsu is pretty elite. By itself, though. Like, by itself. I think if you put him in a wrestling match, I think he fucks up probably a majority of people, even those who train wrestling. I think if you put him, and they have put him in jiu-jitsu competitions, and he has wrecked everybody in them. Now, when it comes to striking specifically, what I can tell you from what I have witnessed is I have witnessed him outstrike Glover Teixeira in an area where John Jones had no business outstriking Glover Teixeira. That actually happened.
Okay.
So,
I mean, not to get too bogged down on this, but I think the idea of the argument is that if you were to write down a list of all of the different attributes that go into MMA, you'd say wrestling, grappling, BJJ, striking, kickboxing, etc., and then say next to that, write down the name of the best guy in the UFC at each of those things. John Jones probably wouldn't be in any of those first slots. But then at the bottom, you're like, who's the best at MMA? It's John Jones.
I see where you're going with it. I'm still not there. I don't buy it.
I see where you're going with it too.
Yeah.
Across MMA, I guess not wrestling, but like at light heavyweight, I'm saying during his prime run, was there a better one?
But here's my there's guys who he also doesn't use his wrestling the way that guys who are that elite at wrestling have to use their wrestling. Like I think there's a difference to it. Like I think John Jones is an elite wrestler. Like I said, if you put him in a wrestling match, I think he does very well against elite wrestlers. But the way other elite wrestlers that you might automatically attribute the best wrestling to, perhaps like a Khabib or whatever, those guys had to use that skill set in order for them to win. John Jones is so fucking good at everything, he can do whatever the hell he wants.
I do totally agree with you that I think his wrestling and grappling are actually pretty fucking elite.
Yeah, the argument would be the kickboxing and
the back into port here.
Yes, that's fair.
What's that?
We need to steer the ship back into port here.
He's right. He's right, guys. He's right. All right, where were we here? Let's move on.
I will finish on one point. He also kicked DC in the face and knocked him out in that. So
he did. To circle us back, I will say that I also considered the winner of Dom Reyes and Carlos Olberg, but I ultimately didn't go to that route for the exact same thing that Mike just said. I was like, ooh, Dom Reyes would be fun. Ooh, Carlos Olberg seems a little too violent. So instead, I said the winner of this weekend's fight between Dustin Jacoby and Alonzo Menafield.
The winner, you think?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. In the interest of time, congrats again to my guy, Khalil Roundtree Jr. And that was the co-main, gentlemen. It is rare on this show that a winner of the co-main event does so emphatically that he steals the on the marquee spot in our rundown. So big time for Khalil here. Now let's go to the winner of the main event of UFC Fight Night, Song versus Gutierrez. Song Yadong defeated Chris Gutierrez in the main event here at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada by a unanimous decision and a shutout on the scorecards, gentlemen. The scores read at the end of this one after 5 rounds, 50-44, 50-45, and 50-45, all for your winner by unanimous decision, Song Yadong. Omar, give us your take across 5 rounds. How did Song look, in your opinion?
Thought he looked great. I thought the main difference was his consistency across the board. And I think the other big takeaway was the fact that each round got consistently worse. With each round, Song seemed to get stronger and faster and better and more precise. And Gutierrez was breathing harder and having a bigger issue trying to pick up or trying to get the pace right, trying to keep his timing against Song. I thought it was a great performance from Song, man. And to be honest, I was super impressed. I've liked Song across a lot of different fights that he's been in. He's had a lot of good scraps. He's got good technique. But I don't know, man. There was something about the way he was able to dominate Chris Gutierrez in this fight that I thought was significantly impressive across 5 rounds, especially. So, big props to Song Yadong for pulling off a performance like that for sure. That kid has to get catapulted to the top at this point.
Mark, your thoughts?
First off, he did the Tom Aspinall. My man has started a trend. He put the hand on the shoulder at the face-offs, but Chris Gutierrez did not return.
That's right.
Return the favor like our boy Pavlovich did. But yes, Song Yadong is really good, and like it wasn't the most dominant performance he's ever had. Obviously, he didn't get a finish or anything, but I feel like he really showed just how high level he is in this fight. And yes, it took him a bit to truly take that fight over. But even in the first round and a half, before he had made his adjustments, where he was still stuck at range with Chris Gutierrez, he was probably still winning. He was landing harder calf kicks than Chris Gutierrez was. And that's literally what Chris Gutierrez does.
It's true.
And then, of course, halfway through the second round, he got that takedown and the fight started to change. Clearly, he had made some reads by then. And from that point on, he did a much better job of keeping the pressure on Chris and crashing inside and looking for opportunities to wrestle. And really, the range was not the same from that point forward. Obviously, he dropped Chris in the 4th, which was a big moment. On the mat, Gutierrez was basically stuck. There was nothing he could do to get up from under Song. So he was able to work there without much issue. It was just a really well-rounded performance from Song Yadong, and one where he really showed the way that he can analyze the puzzle in front of him and figure out how he needs to approach it and shut it down. And his power was just so different in every facet from Chris's power in this fight. Chris needs to get himself a lot more comfortable with his boxing, I think, if he's going to beat these ranked guys, because there's just not enough commitment there from him in terms of throwing his hands. And I feel like that really limits what he's able to do in a lot of these exchanges. But it was a great performance from Song. And then he went ahead and crushed the interview in English. So good for him on that. But yeah, big night.
All right. The question is for Song Yadong. Mark, I'm going to throw this one to you first. Do you consider him at the elite of bantamweight, or is he kind of like right at the door?
Door.
Song,
yeah.
Door. Omar, door, Song, or elite Dong?
I think Song's got his foot in the door, literally propping it open as we speak.
Okay. That being said, let's pivot now into what could be next for him. Mark, give us the name of who you would match up Song Yadong with next at bantamweight.
So a ton of people are throwing out Song and Petr Yan, and obviously that's what he called for after the fight, and I'm fine with that. It's a great fight, but I really love the fight we talked about last week, which is Figgy and Piotr Jan. So personally, I'd rather see that Figgy be the guy that gets that fight, but really, whoever doesn't get Jan out of Figgy and Song is going to be left without a dance partner for a little bit, I think, because O'Malley and Cheeto is booked for March. Cejudo and Merab is booked for February.
Mm-hmm.
Corey's hurt. Aljo's apparently moving up to featherweight. So it's really like those three guys in Figgy, Song, and Jan. Like, unless you want to push Cruz up to fight one of them, or if Nurmagomedov is going to be back and you want to push him up to fight one of them, I don't know. So we'll see. I feel like someone's going to get booked to fight Jan, and the other guy might have to wait a little bit.
Omar, any other thoughts?
So Peter Yan was my pick. I honestly, it just seems to make the most sense, especially with the way that division is set up right now. It's bantamweight's a little bit of a mess at the top, but all in all, if you're asking me if I want to see Peter Yan and Song Yadong scrap, the answer is 100% yes.
Totally. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. That would be a huge heat check for Song Yadong as he's climbing up into these bantamweight rankings. Because, man, Peter Yan, or my favorite way of saying that is how Ray Longo says it, because the Sarah Longo team has spent quite a bit of time sharing the cage with Peter Yan. Peter Yan. You know, Peter Yan, he's a good kickboxer.
That's pretty good.
Thank you.
I enjoy that.
You should hear my Joanna Jędrzejczyk. That's even better.
Boy, that's a classic.
All right. Anything else we want to say about? Oh, let's match up Chris Gutierrez here, because Chris Gutierrez will be back. Mark my words. The man is too talented at 135. Omar, who do you think that Gutierrez could square up against next?
So there are two guys that are fighting soon, a little soon, probably this weekend soon, that I think would be fun to see the winner of them fight Gutierrez. So the winner of Cody Garbrandt and Brian Kelleher, I think would be very interesting.
Mark, any other ideas?
I actually like that a lot. I just realized I never looked at a matchup for Chris, so I was scrambling over here just now.
That's a great pick.
And I came up with Adrian Yanez, but I don't know if I love it. And I kind of like the route Omar just took.
I mean, Yanez just had his leg hacked to pieces by Gutierrez's teammate.
Correct. That's
Jonathan
why
Martinez.
I was like, we put him right back in there and see what he's learned. But that's why I was also like, I kind of don't like it. So I like Omar's idea. I was ill prepared for that one. My bad.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the lightweight division matchup between Nasrat Haqparast and Jamie Mullarkey. And I believe I got this one wrong, gentlemen. And Nasrat, Haqparast. He proved us all wrong by TKOing Jamie Mullarkey in the freaking first round. The official time 1:44 of the very first round. Mark, start us off this time. Give us your take of how this fight played out in just a minute and 44 seconds.
Dude, maybe Nasrat Haqparast is still coming along. I think we all collectively thought he had kind of settled in as a mid-level UFC lightweight, and that's just what he was. But this was a big one for him to do that and to show that kind of KO power. That's not really something we've seen from him to this point in his career. I think I even made the point last week of how Mullarkey would have time to work because Haqparast wasn't really a guy who was going to knock him out. And so much for that. He gets his first knockout victory in I don't know how many years here. And honestly, you could see it from jump. The very first left hand of the fight that landed, I went, "Ooh, that was big left." Like you could see right away. He was throwing with a different kind of heat in this fight. So he may still be progressing. There may still be improvements there that maybe we didn't realize were there to be had for Haqparast.
Yeah.
And he looked good all fight. Well done by him. And yeah, maybe he's got more levels to show.
Yeah, man. Omar, your thoughts?
So that's the Nasrat Haqparast I've always assumed was there. And every time that I went to go pick this kid, he would shit the bed, right? And so I got to a point where I didn't even really like picking Malarkey back in the day because I never really, was never really super sold on him. Then we ended up with this predicament here, and I was like, I think Malarkey's gotten to a point where I think he's a little trustworthy, right? You could at least put on a fight. If nothing else, Malarkey comes to scrap 100%. So I thought we'd at least get, a solid decision one way or another out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And Nazareth just completely smoked this kid, and I really didn't see that part coming, man. It's a good performance from him, though. You can't take anything away from him. Whether it was he caught him or what, I don't know if he was working on his power. But he's had a really bad habit of headhunting, and he did a great job of really picking his shots and really landing with authority when he needed to. So it was a good performance from Nazareth. I don't know how much I want to take away overall from this. I think there's still some more performances that I would need to make sure that this is something that's consistently going to be a thing for him, but definitely a great performance nonetheless.
Yeah, man. All right, staying with you, Omar. Who would you match up Nasrat Hakparas with next at 155 pounds?
So if Nazareth is going to be throwing bombs and putting people to sleep, then I think he needs to be up against somebody who's also throwing bombs and putting people to sleep. So let's have him against Terrence McKinney, and let's see who dies.
Ooh, let's go. Mark, what do you think of that? And do you have any other ideas?
I like that one. I went a different style route. I was just thinking that he deserves a step up. A guy who's up there that's been struggling a little bit as of late is Guram Kutateladze. Obviously, he has beaten Mateusz Gamrot, so he's shown his talent, but he's only 1-2 in the UFC. He's got to defend his spot, and I figured match those two up.
Okay. I like it. Let's keep this ship rolling right along, gentlemen. In the bantamweight division, Tim Elliott also made me look bad by defeating Sumaderji by technical submission, choking him out with that arm triangle choke. Also in the very first round, the official time 4:02 of round number 1 this time. Omar, start us off with this one. Give us your impressions of Tim Elliott looking good over the dangerous striker Sumaderji.
I mean, this is Tim Elliott. It's classic Tim Elliott. If you know who Tim Elliott is, none of what happened this weekend should surprise you. This dude has every chance generally in fights to do crazy shit like this. Scrambles are always wild with him. He's always doing some weird unorthodox shit. It's difficult to plan for him even when you have a full training camp, let alone when he just jumps into a fight last minute. So it was great to see. Tim Elliott has a disgusting choke when it comes to that side, that arm triangle choke. And I don't know. So who did he take over for? Because now I can't remember who the original fight was. Do you remember?
Alan Nascimento? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big step for Sumaderji, just getting somebody like Tim Elliott in the first place. Is that the reason it was at 135, just because it was short notice?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was a great performance from Tim Elliott. Like I said, I don't really know, what kind of consequence you give Sumaderji. It's somebody who was, I think, way above him at that point anyway. But it was definitely one of those Tim Elliott reminders that there are levels to this, and Sumaderji just might not be there yet.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Mark?
Yeah, I thought Tim fought a perfect fight. I love to see him get a win like that and remind people how good he is. And really, this one went exactly how I kind of envisioned it to go. Sumaderji was comfortable on the feet, landing some. Obviously, he's good there. But Tim's movement was enough to keep him from eating anything big until he was able to get to his wrestling. And then once this thing hit the mat, Tim didn't need any takedowns beyond the first one. He just had Sumaderji outclassed down there. And you saw it the way that Maderji let the arm triangle come about, and Tim jumped right on it and squeezed and put him out. So hell of a short notice win for Tim against a dangerous guy who was obviously much bigger than him, but he had that edge on the ground and he went right to it and exploited it.
Mark, staying with you, what is next for Mr. Tim Elliott at bantamweight?
I think we've mentioned this one before, but we are yet to get it, so I will go back to it. I would like Tim Elliott and Matt Schnell. I think that's a perfect matchup. Really fun fight. I want to see it.
Nice. Both guys' most recent victory is over Sumiderji. Omar, your thoughts?
So I was going to go down the line of the loser of the Mokaev versus Perez fight that is going down quite soon. I thought that would be a
Wow, I
fun.
forgot that was booked. Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Perez and Makayev?
Yeah.
Hmm.
This is obviously as long as Alex Perez makes weight. But yes,
Yeah,
that is the plan.
God only knows. Or doesn't stub his toe or get sick or God knows what else.
All three. Or all three.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, moving right along here. Fight that opened the main card of this UFC Fight Night in the middleweight division. Andre Muniz gets the win over Park Jun-young by a split decision, 29-28 on all three scorecards, two of them in favor of Muniz, only one for Jun-young Park. Mark, start us off. Give us your take of Muniz getting this win.
The first round of this fight was so difficult to call because Muniz was in control for the great majority of it. And he wasn't just laying there. Like, there were a bunch of mat returns where, Park would get up and Muniz would take him down again, some back takes, few punches mixed in. Like, there was activity. It's not like he was doing a ton, but my point is there was activity. But then the question becomes, do a big 40 seconds beat 4 minutes of good work? Because that's exactly what Park had at the end of that round. And to me, I do think it did. It was close, but I think Park did just enough and got through with enough of those shots late to steal that round. From there, round two was obviously all Muniz, and as much as he has had some underwhelming performances recently, you could see how good his grappling is just to control a guy like Park the way that he did. I don't feel like, I'm trying to think, I don't feel like we've really seen anyone have that type of control over Park. So it was impressive to see. And then we come to round three and he's doing the same for a bit, but Park turns it around. And in my mind, he very clearly took that round by the end of it. And the reason Muniz won is because a judge who didn't give him round one gave him round three, which is crazy to me. If we're going to debate any round in this fight, I think the round to debate was round one. So I don't like seeing that. I don't think round three was a round that was up for debate. It was 29-28 Park for me, but I admit it was close. If you said round 1 and 2 to Muniz, I wouldn't hate it. And ultimately, he does get a win here that he needed very badly.
Omar?
I was also kind of in the Park. Yeah, man. I was I was also in that ballpark as well, mainly because of the same reason. I thought the damage was just significantly more. But as the fight was going on, though, as soon as that first round was over, and I was like, if this is what the fight is going to be, this is going to be a mess of a scorecard. The first round and the third round, as far as I was concerned, I think were the two that, for me, Park won. And for the kind of the similar reasons, just the damage that was done at the very end of the round, I think in both of those rounds. The second round to me was the clearest round, and that was because Park wasn't able to reverse any of those positions and really get any kind of solid ground and pound or anything like that going. But at the end of that first round, I think, what was it? The first round, I think, was maybe 30, 40 seconds of just straight hammers and punches raining down on Muniz, and they landed too. It wasn't like these were, shots that hit the arm and all this kind of stuff that we see sometimes. These were shots that were getting through, that were going in. I think he even landed maybe an elbow or two. And the third round was also very similar towards the end of the round again as well. The control for me, I thought, just doesn't do enough to warrant winning a round when you're getting beat on at the end of the round. It just didn't feel right at the end of the first round. Didn't feel right at the end of the third round. So I scored both of them for Park. I can see why people would obviously score that round for Muniz in both of those situations, just based on how long the control was for Muniz. But to me, I thought the damage was done significantly more by Park in both of those rounds. So wasn't thrilled with the decision, but I understood where it was going, and I knew those scorecards were going to probably be all over the place, and they a little bit were. But, it was a good fight overall. I hope to see Jun-young Park back. If we're being honest, I wasn't super thrilled with Muniz's game plan. Obviously, he had to do what he needs to do to get the split decision win. But, yeah, I enjoy watching Park more than I do Muniz at this point.
So Muniz gets out of there with the win by split decision, getting back to the win column after losing 2 in a row. Where does he go from here now? Omar, who do you think at middleweight would match up well with Muniz?
So I think for Muniz, I would want to see him against the loser of the Hermanson and Joe Pyfer fight. Mainly because that seems like a violent fight that I don't think he'd be able to keep them on the ground for 15 minutes straight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mark, your thoughts?
I'm going to say Kyle Bahalio. He is a guy who has deserved an opponent to try to break through against, and the two of them are very similar in terms of size, in terms of skill set. Let's put him in there and see who's the better version.
Like it. Brazil
Yeah,
on Brazil violence. Never disappoints. Okay, here we go. Let's keep going, gentlemen. Let's keep going. Into our lightning round for the rest of this UFC Fight Night card, where Mark and Omar give me their quickest takes. No matching up opponents or potential next opponents. Just a quick recap of these fights. Here we go. What was the featured bout of the prelims for this UFC Fight Night? Kevin Jousset, UD over Kenan Song. Mark?
This was a great performance from Kevin Jousset, where he just maintained the exact range he wanted all fight long and really beat up Kenan Song. He worked behind the jab. He used his kicks, especially the calf kick. And he kept himself just outside of that range that Song wanted to work in. And outside of a few moments, Song really couldn't figure out how to close it to land his own shots. And he kind of took a beating. You know, he battled through. Props to him. He battled through all the way to the end. But it was all Jousset. Song looked beat up by the end. And Jousset showed again that he's a name to watch.
Omar?
I would have to agree, man. Jousset looked great in that fight. I thought the main thing I thought that was great for him was his composure throughout the entire fight. And by the time we were done with the first round alone, Song's face was all kinds of messed up. I mean, his right eye was so close to being blown all to hell. And it just got worse throughout the rest of that fight. So I thought it was a beautiful performance, beautiful striking. Definitely interested to see if he can pull that kind of performance off with each person that he continues to fight against. I think obviously he'll run into a lot more opposition the closer you get to the elite side, but hell of a performance.
Okay, in the flyweight division, Park Hyun-sung defeated Shannon Ross by TKO in round number 2. Omar, staying with you. Take it.
Shannon Ross did some work in there for as long as it lasted. But Sung Park, not Young, I'm just adding shit now to people's names. Sung Park looked fantastic in that fight. I thought his striking was pretty goddamn good. He lands some nasty power behind those shots. And the finish was great. I'm definitely interested to see what Park has going forward. Great finish, great TKO. Good first round on top of that.
Mark, did you go for this one?
No.
Go.
Shannon Ross is a guy whose offensive style is to initiate a ton of exchanges. But what we are seeing is that he's just not where he needs to be defensively to fight that way. And he's now been finished in 3 out of 3 octagon appearances. So I'm not sure what the future will hold for him. But yeah, Park fought beautifully. Seemed like maybe he was dealing with an injury somewhere in his lower leg from a checked kick earlier in the fight, but he fought through that, landed on Ross repeatedly, and then he really hurt him with that body kick late. He saw it. Yeah. He mixed it up to catch 2 more beautiful lefts to the body that put an end to it and really put a stamp on a good win.
Okay.
Yeah, I will. Oh, my bad. I will say they have it listed as knees and punches as the finish. That knee didn't even land in the body. It was all punches. All punches.
Yeah. Well, it was the kick that started it, but then punches, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Steve Garcia, round 2 knockout over Melky Costa. Mark?
It's really easy to root for Steve Garcia, man. That boy does not step in there looking to win decisions. And he had to endure a tough first round with Costa on his back the whole time. And then he almost started round 2, in trouble getting taken down, but he reversed it immediately. And holy hell, did he just unleash absolute violence once he was on top of Costa. It was just a swarm that Costa couldn't find his way out of. He couldn't find a breath. He couldn't find a second, and he was out of there. So great win for Steve Garcia.
Omar.
This was one of those moments where I feel like collectively everybody must have had the same reaction, because I definitely did with the commentators, where Steve Garcia gets on top. You know what I mean? Obviously, shit has gone sideways at this point for Melky, but Garcia gets on top, starts raining down, your punches, trying to get in there, trying to finish the fight. And all of a sudden, things get real fucking even more violent than they were. And he just lands 2 elbows that sound like he hit him with a fucking baseball bat. And everyone collectively just goes, oh, we're done. We're done here. So props to, I think that was Mark Smith that called that fight when he did. So props to Mark Smith for knowing when enough was enough, because the sound on those last 2 elbows at the end of the fight were devastating.
Okay. Luana Santos, UD over Stephanie Egger. Omar, staying with you.
This was a little bit of a weird fight, if we're being honest. I thought Luana Santos, I still think Luana Santos is the better fighter overall, but I think she played that game a little not the best. Obviously, she gassed very, very hard towards the end of that fight and allowed Egger to kind of come back a little bit. It was I'm curious to see how Mark had it scored. I had Luana Santos definitely winning. I believe it was round 2, or at least round 1. But Egger was never really out of that fight, man. She kept trying to fight and kept trying to come forward, especially in that 3rd round. I think she tried to make a good accounting of herself, but I think it was just a little too late. Santos definitely came out with that win, but it was a weird performance from her, for sure.
Yeah, Mark?
Yeah, I thought Santos looked pretty good here before she gassed, and she did gas pretty bad. But she really had Egger struggling in the first, trying to figure out how to deal with all the kicks and all the angles. And then in round 2 is when Santos went to the clinch. She got her takedown. She did some good work there. And I see a lot of people scoring rounds 2 and 3 for Egger. And 3, okay, I could see.
Yeah.
As I said, Santos did gas bad, but I thought Santos got plenty done in round 2. One little spurt of 2 punches late in that round that landed flush for Egger, I didn't think was enough to win her that round. So I had a 29-28 Santos.
Okay. Tatsuro Taira, round 2 TKO over Carlos Hernandez. Mark?
Tatsuro Taira, man, it continues. It is time to give this guy a friggin' ranked opponent. Enough is enough. He showed off the grappling again in the first round, just floating through transitions, completely controlling Hernandez. But then he finishes it by showing off some KO power, which is not necessarily what he's known for, especially after his striking looked a little shaky in his last one. So to see him come out and do that, that's a pretty nice statement.
Yeah.
And he's 5-0 in the UFC now, still with a lot of room to grow.
That's right. Omar?
Yeah, man. Taira's good, man. He's starting to really get some versatility in how he's finishing these fights as well. I'm that's Mark's boy. I won't take that away from him. I won't steal Taira from him. But he's good, man. He's good and definitely got to be one to look out for.
Yeah, man. Okay, last one. Talita Aling, how do you say her last name? Alankar?
Yeah, I believe.
Over split decision over Rayanne Amanda. Mark?
So this wasn't a great fight, if we're being honest. 2 girls who are more skilled on the mat engaged in mostly a striking contest. And in terms of who won, I thought Amanda won the first pretty clearly, landed more, landed harder. Alankar got the only takedown of the fight in the second, and I think she won that round with her groundwork. But then I think Amanda won round 3.
Yeah.
Now, granted, both girls did next to nothing in round 3. I just think Amanda did a bit less of nothing, so I don't feel too bad, but I was still fairly surprised to see the decision.
Omar, take us home.
I'd have to agree. There wasn't really much to kind of take home from this fight, but I did have Amanda winning round 1 and round 2 or round 3. I just didn't think Alankar did enough in that fight in general, to be honest. She seemed very uncomfortable on the feet. She had maybe one real punch that was threatening throughout that entire fight that she telegraphed quite a bit. Wasn't super impressed on either side, to be quite honest with you, but I did think Amanda won round 1 and round 3.
And that does it, boys, for this week's lightning round. All right, let's put